Good evening, everybody. 2 months ago, it was the end of August that we had our last telephone town hall. There's been quite a few things that have occurred since the end of August, and now beginning with a whole issue pertaining to Syria and the role of the United States in connection with Syria. Then we had the government shutdown. Clearly, there's been a lot of activity around the Affordable Care Act. We've had the floods in the early part of September, and the response has been ongoing since the floods occurred in September. We have budget issues that still have to be managed and confronted by the Congress of the United States, and there are a number of things that have not been dealt with by the Congress, starting with immigration reform, the Farm Bill, transportation bill. There are many items that have to be dealt with, which have not been managed in a timely fashion, in my opinion. But I would be very interested in hearing your comments tonight and listening and trying to answer your questions. I think the one thing I really do want to talk about is the government shutdown, which, in my opinion, was, really ridiculous and not necessary, and brought a lot of stress to a lot of people, both within and without the federal government. And the good news is that after about 2.5, almost 3 weeks of furloughing people, many of whom live right here in the Lakewood area in the 7th Congressional District, because we have the Federal Center, we have many federal agencies that are that have headquarters or different units here in the Denver area. So we had our fair share of people being furloughed, and I've had a chance to meet with a number of them and to hear their stories. And so we have this continuing resolution that keeps the government open until January 15th, and there are some benchmarks between now and then where we hope to get a budget passed. But we've got a lot of work to do, and I hope the Republican leadership in the House remembers, let's see where we can reach, where we can cooperate, where we can work things out, but to close down the federal government isn't the right answer. Now, for those of you that have questions, please press *3. We already have about a dozen people who have questions they would like to ask, and at this time we have almost 2,500 people on the phone. So, Leslie, if we could begin taking questions.
Sure, and thanks, Ed. And we're going to first ask a question of our telephone audience to get things started. We'll be doing some poll questions, and we'll read the results as we go along on the call tonight. The first question I have for our audience is just a general question. In thinking about the economy in Colorado, do you think things are getting better, getting worse, or there hasn't been a change? If they're getting better, press 1 on your keypad. If they're getting worse, press 2. If it's no change, press 3. Again, in thinking about the economy in Colorado, do you think things are getting better, getting worse, or no change? 1 for getting better, 2 for getting worse, and 3 for no change. Okay, our first question tonight will be from Laura in Wheat Ridge. Laura, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Representative Perlmutter, I really appreciate you taking my question.
Sure.
I work for a hospital system that is throughout 18 states in the United States, but certainly this question is relevant to Colorado. And I'm wondering your support on this issue, but critical access hospitals are rural hospitals that serve, our rural communities that when people need care, the critical access hospitals provide care that otherwise they would have to drive 30 miles or more to receive. And they're really coming under fire this year. So, for instance, last year Medicare spending was cut, and they cut payments to critical access hospitals by 2% through the sequester, and the Medicare bad debt reimbursement was reduced by 35%. On top of that, the President's budget has proposed that they reduce critical access hospital payments from 101% to 100% of Medicare costs.
Okay.
They're also proposing that total elimination of bad debt reimbursement should be considered. And then there are several other threats that are coming upon us. Even in fact, the distance requirements. Critical access hospitals need to be within a 30-mile radius of another specific facility.
Okay,
and
so Laura, let me answer your question, and it's
sure,
a good one,
you.
And it's one that it's kind of symptomatic of a number of things going across all areas of the federal budget. But the critical care access is critical. I mean, this is about rural health care. Clearly in the middle of the country, the Plain States, the Rocky Mountain West, we have a lot of wide open spaces, and people are a long way from, the nearest big city with hospitals. And so we do need to make sure that they have access to health care and that we assist in some fashion or another as a country to those areas. Now, with all of the budget constraints, and especially sequestration, which is, a term for budget cuts, we've seen, the payments to the critical care system in rural America shrink, just as they've shrunk for, just about everything else in the budget. I hope and I believe that as the economy continues to expand and as both Democrats and Republicans come together and realize that we need to be investing in our nation, that some of these cuts to, access to rural health care, to this critical care, we can reverse those, as we might reverse, some additional funds, have more funds for Head Start or, different things, different programs across the gamut of federal agencies. But you've pinpointed one place where there have been cuts and they've hurt, and we need to, get our budget right, make investments where they're important, and get this country really moving. But, Laura, thank you very much for your question, and obviously you're very knowledgeable on the subject. And call us if you have any other questions.
Thanks very much. And our next question is from John in Lakewood. John, go ahead.
Hi, John.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I have a question that's maybe a comment, and maybe I want to comment on it, and maybe not.
Okay.
My question is, how do we get the leadership of the Republican Party to act like sane partners in a two-party system? They haven't been doing that for quite a while now.
Okay, so that's your comment, and then I'll try to answer it. Did you have a question too on the affordable?
I did have one more thing to say.
Okay.
I want to say thank you to you and to the Democratic Party for passing the Affordable Care Act. This is going to make it possible for me in the next few days to purchase a health care policy, which I have not been able to do for quite a long time. It will, in fact, make health care affordable for me. Well, I want to say for that.
Well, thank you, John, and thanks for your call. I think, there have been a lot of bumps and bruises as the Affordable Care Act has been rolled out over the last 4 or 5 weeks. But at the end of the day, the belief is that this will make coverage of all Americans easier to reach. And, there are still going to be some hurdles, but in Colorado, both Democrats and Republicans sort of took the bull by the horn and embraced the Affordable Care Act and came up with Connect for Colorado, which is our own, in effect, marketplace for health coverage. And there are, it's got thousands of people who have looked at the website, and between the sort of the Medicaid part of it and the insurance portion, some 37,000 people have signed up, and there's all sorts of folks who are beginning to participate and see that there are some real opportunities for them there. But there still are going to be bumps and hurdles, and we just got to keep working through it. With respect to your comment, obviously I'm a Democrat. This is not a Democratic or Republican telephone town hall, but as an observer, because the Democrats are in the minority in the House of Representatives. And the House of Representatives is a very majority-driven body. So Democrats a few years ago were in the majority. Now the Republicans are in the majority. And part of the problem is there is this clash within the Republican Party between sort of more moderate business-type Republicans and more ideological individuals. And when the majority party can't reach any kind of consensus of its own, it needs to reach out to the minority party, the Democrats in this instance, to then have a majority overall within the Congress. And that hasn't been happening, and that's what led to the government shutdown, which was completely unnecessary, held our economy back, and really put a lot of distress into people's lives that didn't need to be there. I'm hoping that incident will open everybody's eyes, and that we will have a more cooperation within the United States House of Representatives for the benefit of the nation and all of our people. So, John, thank you for your call.
Thanks, John. Next, we're going to go to Beth in Golden.
Beth?
Yes.
Hi, this is Ed Perlmutter.
Hi, thank you very much for having this. My question has to do with the news just today that now there are 250,000 Coloradans who have lost their insurance. And I would just like to have you comment on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comment, and if you read the whole article, basically it's 250,000 Coloradans have policies which don't have, like maternity care, don't have mental health services, what are called the 10 essential benefits. And most of those policies are through Kaiser and through Colorado, through the Anthem affiliate, HMO Colorado. There are replacement policies for those policies that are being dropped because the new policies have the essential coverage that is required. And so, there may be a problem, but at the end of the day, there is a replacement policy that has the required essential services that people should get, whether it's pediatric care, mental health services, emergency care, prescription drugs. And, like John said, there are going to be some people who have had no access to health care coverage who now can get it. But what we're going to have to just make sure is those people where Kaiser or somebody else has canceled the policies because they no longer fit the Affordable Care Act, have a replacement policy for those individuals. Now, in our office, we've gotten some calls, maybe 20 to 30 calls about this, and we will do our best to work with everyone to make sure they can navigate through the Connect for Colorado and find that replacement policy when they go look at this. Now, the other thing that needs to be remembered is the Colorado marketplace is different than the federal marketplace because Colorado set up its own marketplace. That's where you're going to find at least, I think it's 10 providers who each have 10 or 15 types of policies and coverages available for Coloradans. And so there are quite a few choices to make, and that's the purpose of this marketplace. So your question's a good one. It just came to my attention earlier today, but the point is it's two major providers who also will have replacements, which have the coverage that is required. But Beth, thank you very much for your question.
Thanks very much. And I just want to give the results of the survey question that we asked a couple minutes ago. The question was, in thinking about the economy in Colorado, do you think things are getting better, getting worse, or no change? 31% of you said it's getting better, 33% said getting worse, and 36% said no change. And about 450 of you answered the question. And we have had almost 7,000 people join us on the call tonight. So thanks, everybody, for participating. And just a reminder, if you do have a question for Ed, please press *3 on your phone, and we will get to your question as soon as possible. The next question is from Gary in Edgewater. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, Ed.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, thanks for doing this. My question is that recently we've heard that Iran has got troops in Syria, and I was just curious, what kind of pressure are we putting on Iran to get those troops out of there?
That's a very good question. The intelligence that we've received, is that Syria and Iran have always been very close. Iran has bolstered Syria's army over many years now, and we don't have specifics of Iranians actually being members of the Syrian army, but we know that they've provided advice, and they've provided different kinds of material to the Syrians. Now, what's happening is since early September, when there was the question about the use of nerve gas, and I can tell you that the people in this area, in the 7th Congressional District, thought the use of the poison gas was heinous, obviously a crime under so many treaties and the Geneva Protocol. But people really do have fatigue and are concerned about any further intercession by the United States into the Middle East, any new kinds of things. The goal is to sort of withdraw from Afghanistan. We've withdrawn from Iraq. So the good news is that there is now an international effort, one, to dispose of the nerve gas, also to kind of oversee all the fighting that's going on, and there are many, many different sides to this fight. The Iranians' presence potentially complicates what is a messy situation even more. I don't think we have any specifics as to what kinds of troop numbers they have. The United States, based on this most recent thing in early September, I know this district is very wary about the U.S. Having boots on the ground. But to the degree that this thing starts to explode, even though we don't like being the policeman for the globe, when you are the number one nation in the world, you have some responsibilities that you can't shirk. And so I think we did a good job getting the international community to work with us on disposing of this poison gas. And I think our first order of business is to continue to get the international community to try to stop this civil war that's occurring in Syria. Good question, very complex and complicated problem.
Thanks so much. And our next question is from Loretta in Henderson, Colorado.
Hello.
Hi, Loretta.
The question I have is, some people aren't as fortunate as I am. So I watch every day. I know mostly what's going on.
Good.
But the people that can't or don't have a way to get insurance or understand it, there's a lot of people that don't read and write, and they need help.
Well, you are, you're right on. We have a lot of people who don't have insurance because they just don't know how to get it, or they
Right.
don't know the avenues to follow. There are a number of charitable organizations called navigators that assist individuals in pursuing the different kinds of insurance coverages that are available, from Medicaid to the different policies provided by all of these insurance organizations, or Kaiser or HMOs, whatever they may be. Now, I'd say for those people that you know specifically, and for the people listening on the call, we can be a good spot to start. If somebody were to call us, then we can get them in touch with navigators, with brokers, insurance brokers, whatever, so that folks can get coverage or enroll in Medicaid or the like. And we are very happy to do that. So, Loretta, good question. You need to kind of be eyes and ears for our office, and if you have some friends or you know of some people, please get them in touch with us, and then we can help them, navigate through this so that they get coverage. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to keep people out of the emergency room. That's the most costly kind of care, and the law now says, you can go to the emergency room, and that's where people have gone for a couple decades, but we find that is so expensive to the taxpayers of the United States. We'd rather have preventive care. We'd rather they go to a doctor, have coverage in that fashion, instead of using the emergency room as their first line of health care. Thank you for your question.
Thanks. And I have another survey question that I'd like to ask for our callers out there. The next question is, of the following topics, which should be Congress's top priority for the remainder of 2013? Press 1 if you think passing a budget that fixes the automatic cuts of the sequester. Press 2 for passing comprehensive immigration reform. Press 3, passing comprehensive tax reform. Again, out of the following topics, which should be Congress's top priority for the remainder of 2013? 1, if it's fixing the automatic budget cuts known as sequester. 2, passing comprehensive immigration reform. And 3, passing comprehensive tax reform. Okay, and we've had almost 8,200 people join us on the call tonight. And our next question is going to be from Carol in Lakewood.
Tax reform.
Carol?
Hi, Carol.
Yes. My husband has a question. I'm going to give the phone to him.
Okay.
Hi,
what's your name? I'm sorry. What's your name?
My name is Rich.
Hi, Rich.
I met you once at Safeway.
Oh, okay, good. I've
been
at a lot of stores over these past few years.
I think that's just been great. I'm still concerned about this shutdown. How many? They talked about the amount of money. Something like $24 billion was wasted because of it, and the numbers of people who were affected by it. I noticed and looked up that all 4 of our Republican representatives voted to shut it down, and then in the long run, all but one of them went ahead and said, let's open up the government again. But how did that affect Colorado, that shutdown, other than just the money for all the taxpayers?
Well, first it caused all sorts of furloughs, and I'll just give you a real-life example, and you can multiply this by the thousands, because we're second only, this area is second only to Washington, D.C. in the number of federal agencies and federal employees in one place, and that's at the Federal Center, and that was as an outgrowth from World War II, where we had a major munitions installation there at the Federal Center, and now we have dozens of agencies, of every kind that you can think of in the federal government with employees there. So I'll give you, and I can actually use her name because she said that we could do this. So a gal named Ann Humphrey, who's worked for the Treasury Department for 20 plus years, and she has been furloughed several days already this year under the sequestration or the budget cuts. And she is a single woman who has a daughter who is a single mom living with her with a 3 or 4 year old grandson. And so she provides, her daughter does some work, but basically she provides for the family. And when she got the furlough notice that very 1st of October, she came into our office in an utter panic and in such, distress that it took us a while to calm her down, because she said, how am I going to make ends meet? I mean, how am I going to get this done? I've got to provide for these people. I've got to pay for my mortgage. And just multiply that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So we had many employees that faced that. Then we had private companies that really suffered as well. So again, near the Federal Center, Chipotle, which has 30% of its business comes from people who work at the Federal Center. It saw its business just drop like a rock. There was a guy who has a private concession on the Federal Center with an Einstein's Bagels and stuff, and he saw his business drop by 100% because it just caters to the federal employees. So there's just individuals who are hurt. Then it stunts the economy, because when people aren't sure whether they can make that next mortgage payment or whatever, they're not going to buy a certain good. They're not going to do things. And then that slowed our economy down pretty substantially during October. So you added to the distress of people, you slowed the economy down. I mean, one of the things that it was the right thing to do, because the federal workers, it was not their fault that the government got shut down. But so many people were furloughed, sat there for 2.5, almost 3 weeks, and then got back pay for sitting there. Now, they were watching all the time. Was something going to be reopened? Were we going to reopen the government? They had to be ready to get right back to work, but they were sitting there wanting to go back to work. Didn't work, yet they got paid for it, which was the right thing to do, but from an economic standpoint of managing the government was completely, the whole thing was just really crazy. So thanks for your question, and I'm very sad that we had this chapter. Hopefully we won't have it again, and but we've got our work cut out to avoid it again.
Thanks again. Our next question is from Monica in Golden. Monica, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hi. My question is, do members of Congress have, I assume they have health insurance?
Yes.
And is that tax supported?
The answer is yes to both questions. So before I was a member of Congress, I was a lawyer downtown. My firm made a contribution. I made a contribution for my family, so there was an employer contribution plus I paid, and it was Blue Cross Blue Shield. As a federal employee, which is what I am now as a member of Congress, I go through the federal employee health benefits program. The United States does an employer contribution, and I pay as well for my family. And just like, all the federal employees across the country, and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield as my carrier now. And then starting January 1st, I'm going to go into the exchange or the marketplace, as will all my staff for both the Colorado office and the Washington, D.C. office. And yes, there will be an employer contribution by the United States of America, and I will make a contribution, and and I'll have Blue Cross Blue Shield again. So that's the way it is.
Okay, thanks, Ed. And our next question is from Wayne in Arvada. Wayne, go ahead.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Hey, this is great, actually being able to talk to you here.
Sure.
I'm worried about the overall economics. I mean, we, as a country, are just not balancing the checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 100 different reasons why that is. Hell, there's probably 1,000. And government is kind of at a gridlock. I mean, we've seen that in the past, and then we're going to look at it again here, where we've got budget problems. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants stuff. The government probably can't afford to give everybody what they want. We can't afford to send a helicopter out into the middle of South Park every time somebody burns their toast. I just, where does it end? I mean,
no,
I know you want to keep getting elected, and you have to worry about more people out there that want more, and it's costly.
Okay, but let's just sort of let's step back about 3 steps. All right, in 2000, with a Democratic president, Bill Clinton, Republican House of Representatives, and Republican Senate, there was a surplus. Revenues exceeded expenses. Okay? I mean, that's the way it was, and that was good.
So
then promptly there are 2 tax cuts, 2 wars, and a crash on Wall Street, which turned the budget right upside down. Now, there have been cuts to programs. I mean, there really hasn't been. There have been cuts to lots of programs, whether it's Head Start or, as that lady was talking about, the rural health care kinds of things, to the National Institute of Health, which is coming up with new ways that ultimately make us healthier, improve our quality of life, and it's cheaper because they come up with better ways to treat cancer and those kinds of things. So lots of investments have been placed on the back burner because we got ourselves upside down financially after the 2 tax cuts, the 2 wars, and the crash on Wall Street. That accounted for about half of our debt. And so now we are where we are. We have to manage our budget the best way we can, recognizing there's 2 parts to a budget, revenue and expense. If the economy were to grow and expand and people were put back to work, lots of people put back to work, the revenue side improves, which then starts to grow bigger than the expense side. And that's ultimately the goal here. People back to work, get the economy strong, manage our expenses well, and hopefully we don't have, big tax cuts, 2 wars, and a crash on Wall Street again, which then turns our budget upside down. Your point is well taken. I mean, government can't do everything. Government isn't going to solve everything. But there are important components and important services that we do provide, and that's what politics is about, prioritizing those services to bring some order to people's lives, to help provide some comfort, but it is never going to be perfect, and it's never going to cover everything, and it can't. But your point is very well taken, but we've done a good job in reducing the outflow, the operational expense over the last couple years, but we got into a deep hole, and it's going to take us 5 or 10 plus years to get out of that hole, and we need to grow the economy. Thanks for your question.
Thanks. Our next question is from Charles in Westminster.
Hi, Mr. Perlmutter.
Charles, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm a veteran, and
Great.
I've got
Thank you for your service, sir.
I got 30% disability, and I'm unemployed. I've been looking since 2007 for a job. I went to school, used my VA benefits. But the Affordable Care Act, they sent me a letter. I filled out the information, sent it back, and I didn't get any information. How is it going to affect veterans?
Well, it shouldn't affect veterans because you have the VA system of health care. So the Affordable Care Act is what they call a multi-payer, multi-provider. So you got different insurance coverage, like in Colorado, there's Colorado Connect, We have almost a dozen different insurance carriers within the marketplace, and then you can go to any doctors within those insurance systems. You, as a veteran, and again, thank you for your service, especially on the eve of Veterans Day, you can use the VA system, and it doesn't affect the VA system. The other thing I would suggest, and I was sorry to hear about the fact you haven't found employment. We have had recently a veterans job fair. We had probably 15 or 20 employers there who give veterans preferences. So if you're a veteran, they look for you. They know that by your service, you know how to do things. You're efficient. You work hard, and we were at the Federal Center yesterday, and various of those agencies, whether it's the GSA or the Department of Interior or all those, they give veterans preferences as well. So I would ask you to call our office, and we can get you in touch with some of these companies that just came to our veterans job fair. I'm sorry, somehow that word didn't get to you, but I think there are a lot of opportunities for vets right now, and we want to make sure that they know about them. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. And our next question is from Mark Carnes in unincorporated Adams County. Mark, go ahead.
Hello, Congressman Perlmutter.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
Oh, fine, sir. I was concerned about the House being dominated by the majority party and the government being paralyzed almost entirely by one branch of government. And is there any way you could do like in the old days when they had rules where filibusters were more reasonable and not maliciously imposed, and change the rules without preventing the need? There's a certain need for filibusters sometimes, but it's been so misused. Is there any way you could? I know you believe in the Lord, is to give you an idea of how to change that, or is it just almost impossible?
All right, so let's talk about it. And so I want we got to make a distinction between the Senate and the House of Representatives, because the rules are different for both bodies. So the Senate is where they have the filibuster. And the Senate, the filibuster has been used more and more and more to block nominations of judges and cabinet officers, and it blocks the ability to bring up certain pieces of legislation. And that rule, which you don't see in the Constitution or anywhere, but it's part of the Senate rules, says that 60 senators have to agree to let something, a nomination or a bill, come to the floor of the Senate for a vote. And so 60 is a supermajority. And to break a filibuster or to be able to bring it, you've got to have 60 votes. Now, a majority, Democrats have a majority in the Senate. When you add the two independent senators, there are 55. There's two independents, 53 Democrats, but they don't make 60. So the Republicans are in a blocking position in the Senate. Now, there has been some movement in the Senate, which is very different than what's occurred in the House. The House is a different kind of rules. There is a thing called the Rules Committee, and it is a committee that is part of the leadership of the majority party in the House. And so when Democrats had it, I was on the Rules Committee back a few years ago. I was part of that. It's 9 members of the majority party and 4 members of the minority party. So it's a very lopsided committee. And that committee controls all the things that get to the floor of the House of Representatives. So it has a real choke on what business is conducted in the House of Representatives, and it is the leadership's committee. So if they don't want something done, it doesn't get through the Rules Committee. And that's how the House is run. The Senate has the filibuster and the 60-vote majority rule. The House uses the Rules Committee to more or less govern what we get to vote on in the whole House of Representatives. And the Republicans have been very strict in what they've let the whole House vote on. And hopefully the Republicans are getting the same kind of message that I've been getting, which is the people, all of you, Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, Libertarians, Green Party, whatever, want to see more cooperation so that things move forward for the nation and aren't just at a stalemate. But I thank you, Mark, for your question.
Thanks, Mark. Our next question is from Rhonda in Lakewood. Rhonda?
Hello, Congressman.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi. I appreciate this. My question does relate to the Affordable Care Act, and I guess a little more information. I wasn't even all that aware that we had a marketplace here, but actually during the course of our conversation, I went to the not our conversation, but while I've been listening, I went to the website and actually in the process of trying to set up an account. I've hit a stumbling block. It's crashed on me twice, and I guess I'm wondering, with all the problems going on the federal website, I don't know much about this, and I don't know as far as security and all that. I don't know how comfortable I should be giving all my information. I am one of the 250,000 who just found out my insurance of 23 years, which was actually an awesome policy, is no longer available to me. And anyway, I'm very concerned. I'm happy for others that it's helping, but I feel a lot of people are being sacrificed. Anyway, I am glad that Colorado has their own, but like I said, I'm already hitting some stumbling blocks, and I was hoping you could comment on the security of the website, how long it's been up and running, and things like that. I mean,
okay, no, I appreciate you being part of this call and have trying out the system yourself. The Connect for Colorado, all of this started October 1st. So these websites are all new, and obviously they've had their fair share of troubles, although I think Colorado's had a lot less than the federal website. Well, first of all, just for everybody on the phone, tomorrow, if you've got issues you want to talk to us about the health care, you've had your coverage dropped, as Rhonda says she has, 303-274-7944 is our office. And we will do what we can. We'll get you in touch with a navigator or broker or whatever. With respect to the security of these websites, we've been assured that they are secure, that they follow HIPAA and all of that stuff. But again, I didn't write the program or anything else for these, but we know that it's undergone lots of study by the state and by the different carriers who are part of the marketplace, and we feel pretty confident that there is security. But your question's a good one. There are other ways besides just going through the website. I mean, you can make phone calls. You can do it that way as well, talking to people at Connect for Colorado. So I appreciate, one, I'm sorry to hear that your coverage was dropped. It must not have had one of those essential, didn't have one of those essential pieces to it. I think that we will, if you would call our office, or we'll try to reach you tomorrow to go over this. But I appreciate your call and your willingness to try out the website, and we want to help you tomorrow. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And our next question is from Kelly in Commerce City.
Hello.
Hi, Kelly. This is Ed Perlmutter.
Hi, Mr. Perlmutter, or Congressman Perlmutter. First of all, my husband is also active military, and he's in the Guard here at Buckley, and he also works for the federal government.
Thank him for his service, would you please?
I will. We are both very embarrassed about what happened with our government. I think it is a global embarrassment, and I
the,
think
the
that
shutdown?
our Congress, yes,
the shutdown. Yeah,
I think
it's embarrassing.
Our Congress is acting like a bunch of school children, and I'm very, very angry about it. And I'd like to know, is there? I know that Mark earlier, a caller had asked about the filibusters, and you kind of touched on it, explained it a little bit. Is there no other higher authority that can put their foot down and say, knock it off? You're elected by the people of this country to compromise and keep this country running as it should and work together. Certainly,
Kelly,
we did not elect these people to sit up there and take personal opinions and their own ideology for their own benefits. We also have a friend who works at the Pentagon who says that the civilians that work there, they've never seen so much waste. They're online surfing the internet, doing online shopping. Where is the government watching over these people? Why isn't their performance based on productivity? How are we getting rid of that waste to help with the budget?
Okay. All right. Well, you have two different kind of themes that I need to address. The first is the cooperation and the working for the betterment of the nation. And yes, the whole shutdown just was so unnecessary and an embarrassment around the world. Finally, when the speaker, instead of just relying only on Republican votes, he said, okay, the Senate has actually reached an agreement. They sent the bill over to the House of Representatives, which then the House has to act on, and then we could send it to the President. He didn't just rely on Republican votes. Every Democrat plus about 90 Republicans voted to reopen the government. 144 Republicans voted to keep the government shut down. And so then it was open, but it's opened, as I said, the continuing resolution reopening the government lasts until January 15th. We've got to deal with some budget items between now and then so we don't have this kind of thing happen again, which made you very angry. Obviously I've felt so frustrated as I know, millions of people did. Your question about the waste at the Pentagon, we definitely are always trying to weed out waste, fraud, and abuse. And if your friends who are working there can help, pinpoint this, it's got to stop. I don't know specifically who it is or what they're doing, but we can't have it happen. Now, I don't know if those folks were just sort of sitting there and they were being furloughed. But once you got furloughed, you weren't supposed to be on premises of the Pentagon, wherever it was. At the Federal Center, you had to leave, and you could not do any work. You couldn't take a laptop. You couldn't do anything. You just couldn't do anything, period. So I don't know precisely what the circumstances were, and if you could let our office know, there are all sorts of sort of watchdogs to try to minimize the fraud, and we'd love to know more about it. But your anger and frustration, I think, is similar to so many people around the country, and it was embarrassing around the world.
Thank you. I just want to really quick give the results of the last survey. The question was, out of the following topics, which should be Congress's top priority for the remainder of 2013? 48% of you said passing a budget that fixes the automatic cuts of the sequester. 15% said passing comprehensive immigration reform, and 37% said passing comprehensive tax reform, and approximately 415 of you answered that question. and we have had nearly 9,000 people join us tonight. So thanks to everyone who's taken the time to call in. Our next question is from Marianne in Thornton. Marianne, go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering on some of these sequestral cuts that have really hurt, like, for example, my daughter works at hospice. They cut 3%.
Oh, yeah, the hospices got clobbered.
Yeah, and they had to do layoffs, and they have been able to do fundraising and that type of thing. But are there any other avenues they can take, like getting grant money?
So grants are potentially available, but they too have been cut, and there is more competition for them. It's a good question. I mean, things like Meals on Wheels, suffered serious cuts at the federal level. Good news is the state had some money and backfilled for the federal government on Meals on Wheels, which is a great program, allows seniors to stay in their home. They get visits, and the cost is a few $100s a month instead of somebody going to a nursing home, which is a few thousand a month. And, those kinds of things ultimately start adding up, and they don't add to people's quality of life. You really can leverage something like Meals on Wheels, but that suffered big cuts. Our job is to, manage this budget better and manage our expenses and get our priorities straight, and to grow the economy and put people back to work. And that will help the revenue side as well as, we need to manage well our expenses. Where there's fraud, waste, and abuse, or where there's a program that's just outdated, doesn't work anymore, then we got to move on from those things. But it's hard, and I do want to thank everybody. We don't have much time left in the call. We probably have 45 or 50 questions, people who want to ask questions in the queue, and we will really try to address your questions individually later on. But I appreciate everybody who's been on the phone, and the questions have been excellent.
Okay, I think hopefully we can do two more quick questions. This next one is from Matt in Lakewood, and it's Matt, go ahead.
Thanks, Congressman Perlmutter. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm curious where you really kind of fall in the support. There were a couple of things that you mentioned tonight that I think are very important for the U.S. economy. One, you mentioned earlier tonight about the need to get people back to work, and two, that we need to get out of really the Middle East. Where do you fall as far as your policy as it relates to energy independence?
Well, and I'm definitely one of all of the above guys. First is I want us to be as efficient in our use of energy as possible, and clearly we have the best laboratory in the world that works on energy efficiency and renewable energy right here, in Golden at the National Renewable Energy Lab. So be efficient. I always say, a BTU saved is a BTU earned. A gallon saved is a gallon earned. And so energy efficiency, then secondarily renewable energy types of things, because I think we just got to continue to find ways to power our nation in this world, using the sun, using wind, using biofuels, etc. Then I guess I cut my teeth early on in my legal career on issues pertaining to the oil and gas industry, and we've seen a huge increase in production of hydrocarbons here in the United States and here in Colorado area. There's clearly been a lot of controversy around fracking, but I think we can continue to develop safe ways to provide, to bring out hydrocarbons, and then use those as in a transitional way, whether it's natural gas or other kinds of hydrocarbons, and do it in as environmentally as sensitive fashion as possible. Nuclear potential is still there. It carries substantial risk, but under President Obama in the southeast part of the country, we have a number of new nuclear facilities under construction, and so we've got to do all of them. We've got to be smart in how we use our energy. We've got to look to new ways to power the nation. We can't turn our back on traditional fuel sources, and we need to move forward in that regard. So we're almost out of time. I really appreciate everybody participating in tonight's phone call. It seems like so many things have happened since our last one, which was at the end of August. We do have, I want to talk about, we have a Medicare enrollment workshop coming up this Friday, November 8th from 11 to 1 o'clock at the Anythink Library at 9417 Huron in Thornton, Colorado. So that's Friday, November 8th, 11 to 1, Anythink Library, 9417 Huron Street, Thornton, Colorado. Just want to thank you all very much. Have all of you have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.